Welcome, East Mode debaters, to today's lecture, Researching a New Policy Debate Topic and Why It's Like Getting Unlost. So, oftentimes, we find ourselves at the beginning of a new year, policy debate. We've got one huge topic to look at. This year was criminal justice reform. Last year, we had arms sales. But no matter what the topic, we need to be able to sort of get a good understanding of it before the first tournament, especially if we're going to be able to compete with folks who might have gone to camp. So, let's start with step one, getting your bearings. This is the key to getting unlost, as I like to say. So first, you need to explore the topic broadly. That starts by reading the text of the resolution. This is going to be important for topicality later, and it gives you a sense of what you're looking at. So you'll know sort of just from your basic knowledge what different affirmative and negative arguments are probably going to be if you've got an arms sales topic versus a criminal justice topic. So you're going to want to ask yourself a few things. Is this a foreign policy topic? Is this something that I already know something about? But you don't have to do any research about that yet. The next thing you want to read while you're exploring the topic broadly is the NSDA info packet. So they often put out some information which can be useful about each topic, what they think is going to go. And that's a really useful starting off place to sort of understand what other people think might go into this. Third, you want to look and figure out what the novice case areas are. This is both important if there are novices on your team who maybe need help cutting an affirmative. And it's important because these are often some of the core apps of the topic that not just novices are going to be reading. And then finally, lightly browse camp files. So you can find open evidence online. Just look up, policy debate, high school camp files, and you should be able to find them. Just sort of look through, try to understand what people were reading at camp, what affirmatives, what negatives were there, but don't worry about doing anything too deeply. You're going to want to then find opportunities, which means reading about each of the novice case areas and popular camp apps. And there's going to be a bit of a note-taking process. You're going to note down think tanks and authors that appear often. And two, you're going to make notes about potential affirmatives, disadvantages, and counterplans. Don't worry about T's or K's yet. At the beginning of the topic, you're really trying to understand what the core case debates are going to be like, which is affirmatives versus disads and counterplans. Then you can repeat the process by reading other works from those authors and those think tanks, or by investigating the affirmatives, disadvantages, and counterplans that you thought of. And depending on how much time you have before the first tournament and how much time you want to dedicate to policy debate, you can repeat this process going a step further each time. So maybe the first time you read all the novice case areas, you take notes. Then you look at common themes between those, you research those, you take more notes. And often that's good enough, but you can do that third, fourth, fifth layer if you really want to understand the topic. But you're limited on time, so let's move to step two, planning a route to get unlost. So the first thing you're going to do is choose an affirmative. So this part, you need to start finding your partner. You're going to discuss your research. You're going to go over the positives and negatives of a variety of affirmatives. Next, you're going to rank your top three. And I recommend three instead of one because often you're going to be constructing an affirmative and you're going to realize it's not quite as good as you thought it was going to be. It's the perfect time to switch to the next affirmative on the list. So 3 affirmatives from a list that you've researched based on looking through camp files and looking through novice case areas. Next, you're going to try to figure out what negative strategies on this topic are going to be. And this is a little bit more involved, but if you look at all of the affirmatives, right, popular camp apps and novice case areas, you can group them into core topic areas. So if we give the arms sales topic, this was one about reducing arms sales. There are a couple of categories of apps that we thought were important. First were appeasement apps. So this is a type of affirmative that would stop giving weapons to one country to make another country feel better. An example would be don't sell weapons to Taiwan to make China happy. Next is the sanction type of affirmative. So a sanction affirmative would be something like a Saudi Arabia app that says Saudi Arabia is doing bad things, so let's stop giving them weapons. Maybe they'll have better policy after that. And then finally, there were apps that were around a specific technology, like drones apps that said we should limit the sale of drones. So we sort of saw this as 3 distinct types of apps on the topic. And we figured that if you can create a negative strategy against a category, you don't need specifics against each app. So we brainstorm negative strategies. For example, against appeasement affirmatives, the emboldenment disad is really good, right? You can say that instead of appeasing, say China with Taiwan, you're just going to embolden them to be more aggressive and more expansionary. Or the alliance disad. You could say that by no longer selling arms to Taiwan, you're going to lose your alliance with Taiwan, and that's important. And then just an example counterplan. I'll be honest, we didn't actually read this one, but a double down counterplan that says actually we need to sell more weapons to Taiwan, and that you know doesn't link to the emboldenment disad, doesn't link to the alliance disad, and maybe you've got some reasons why that solves the affirmative in the same way. Next, against sanction categories, we figured, okay, if sanctioning is saying we take away their weapons in order to make their other actions better, then there are a couple of ways we can attack that. We can use an alliance disad, which says the weapons are currently holding up our alliance, we're going to lose that. You can use a fill-in disad. Another country will provide them arms instead, and that works really well because it also takes out solvency. And then you can use a conditions counterplan, which says we will only continue to sell them arms if they change X policy, which often solves a lot better than a sanction affirmative. And then finally, with technology affirmatives, we figured the fill-in disad that other countries will say provide drones would be a good disad, and that a counterplan that regulates the sale of that technology might be better. Finally, you've got neg strats against the different categories. You're going to want one truly generic disad that you can use against anything. So for us on the arms sales topic, that was the hypersonics disad, which sort of talked about the loss in sales due to limiting arms sales at all, hurting sort of our defense industrial base that was key to building these super fast rockets. It was a fun but really dumb disad. And the key to having a truly generic disad is that you need to focus on the mechanism of the resolution. So that could be reducing arms sales. If we have something about the economic effects of reducing any arms sales, that's a true generic. Likewise, on a criminal justice topic, you might have a politics disad about, backlash caused by criminal justice bills in general. And that's going to be your truly generic disad. Now, is it going to be your best disad? No. But it's good to have one before your first tournament so that you're ready to deal with anything that, say, doesn't fit into one of these categories that you created. Finally, step 3 of getting unlost is going home. And this is the hardest part, but it's a pretty simple explanation. You need to actually cut the evidence. Your 2A, your second affirmative speaker, should start by cutting the 1AC, and when they finish that, they should prepare 2AC blocks. Meanwhile, the second negative speaker, the 2N, should cut 1NC shells for the disads, the counterplans, and once they're done with that, they should create sort of specific solvency arguments against what we think will be popular AFs. If you have all of that finished before your first tournament, you have a fantastic chance of beating the competition because most people are not prepared on a new topic until long after the first tournament. Now, I understand that often people have limited time to cut evidence. And one of the things that you can do is instead of cutting all of this from scratch, adapt camp files. So a lot of camp files are relatively bad, but if you sort of read the original articles and recut them, you can often create relatively good arguments out of camp files yourself. And that gives you a better understanding of what's going on while still saving you a lot of that research time that's required. I hope this was helpful, and I hope that you all have a fantastic time researching for this new topic. Thank you.